This is Work University, episode 37. This is Work University, and I'm Annalisa Felix. This is where I interview people from various employment backgrounds and get the inside scoop on what their job is really like. If you're just getting into the workforce, or if you're curious about getting into something new, listen up. Today I am speaking with Victoria Robertson, and Victoria is a professional singer and an operatic soprano singer, so she sings in the opera. Welcome, Victoria.
Hi, Annalisa. It's so nice to talk to you.
Let's just get to it. What is an opera singer?
Okay, well, let's see. So being a professional opera singer obviously takes a lot of different areas of study. You're singing operatic repertoire, right? So there's a study of language because most operas are written in Italian or French or German, English, even Russian, even Czech. Mm. So you have this certain ability to study languages, understand different accents, how to do pronunciation. So that's kind of like on the intellectual side as well as learning the music and learning the notes. So you need to kind of understand about sheet music and theory and being able to, at least for the vocal line. You don't have to be a great pianist or anything, although it helps. And then there's the actual production of sound, which comes down to body work. So this, when I say body work, I mean it's not just the vocal cords that you are born with, but how do you connect them to the rest of your air column, which ends up being your body, and that becomes your vibrating column. So there's constant study on one end, intellectually, with the languages and the music, and then the other end is very physical, and it's about getting out of your mind and getting into your body, and that's really working on breath and how to manage the breath so that it can vibrate your vocal cords and produce sound. And then the third thing, of course, that's the talent that you kind of have to be born with, the ability to understand music and pitch and tone, and also the quality of your voice. Those are things that you're born with. So those are kind of the three areas that you can assess to be able to work at and also be born with to pursue a career in opera.
Okay, so basically all of these different parts, technically, of your body you're using to translate a story or a song. Is that what opera means?
Yeah, so the real definition of opera is a work, like a piece of work. So it's including music. Everything is sung. There's a few operas that have some speaking lines, but basically everything is sung. And so when the story is being driven forward dramatically and there's conversation, sometimes that is sung in a little bit more random notes, like nothing so predictable as a melody, but someone singing, hello, how are you today? Oh, I'm so wonderful. It's so happy that you're here. They kind of have these random little music notes. And then they go into what we call an aria. And an aria is when a single singer will stand up on the stage and air out their feelings. So that's more what we would consider more like a song. That's anywhere from like 4 to 8 minutes, roughly on average. And they would just stand there and they would sing the song and air out their feelings. And that's when you will find the melodies and the repetitive verses and these beautiful tunes that we kind of hear throughout movie soundtracks and commercial projects. And so that's where the soloist would sing an aria. And then if two singers are singing together, we call that a duet. 3, it's a trio. 4, it's a quartet, and so on. So there are abilities for lots of singers to have singing dialogue on stage throughout an opera.
Okay. So once you're off stage, how does your position still keep going? What's happening behind the scenes, from practicing to administrative things that maybe I wouldn't know about?
So there's really a lot of preparation that goes on to singing this type of repertoire. Repertoire meaning this type of music. Okay, mm-hmm. It's very demanding on the body, and obviously I also talked about what you have to study with the music and language. So you can expect to be in training for many, many years before you get up and sing an entire opera, even before you stand up in front of people and sing an aria, because this is very challenging music. It's not like pop music where there's either maybe 5, 6 pitches, that's it. You really have to understand the type of voice that you have, and your teacher can help you with that. The type of voice can range from being, in my case, as a female, a soprano, which is a bit higher, or mezzo-soprano, which is lower, and a contralto is even lower. And this is where your voice sits throughout the song, so most comfortably and most powerfully. So you have to kind of assess what type of voice you have and start working on a lot of breath work to get the breath capacity to be able to sing through this music, as well as the strength. People don't quite realize that if you're using your body as an instrument and you're not using any microphones, it's almost like being an athlete. You really have to work your body into a certain physical shape to manage the air, because all singing really is managing your breath. So that's kind of on the physical sound production side. I can also talk about the other aspects of being an opera singer as well.
Please.
So if you're looking at, we've already talked about learning the languages, learning the music, becoming a musician, and working on the body work. And then, of course, which everyone's interested in is also the business. So there's a lot of different theories about the business. Some people say it's a networking game to get yourself heard. You have to go to the right parties, go to the right teachers, go to the right coaches to get you these exposure opportunities. My teacher, who is about 82, 83 years old right now, his philosophy was always, you learn how to out-sing everybody, and then you just sing for as many people as you can, and the opportunities will come to you. There's no one path being an opera singer. However, there are certain exposure opportunities if you're very young, and I'm assuming a lot of this audience might be young, trying to figure out what their careers would be. You can get associated with a specific opera company in what they call a young artist program. So it's kind of like an apprenticeship within that program, and you have to send out a lot of tapes and audition to get in to these young artist programs. I never went that route myself, but I did start singing in a professional opera chorus when I was 18 at San Diego Opera.
Now, do you need a team, or I'm thinking you would need an agent or somebody within this young artist program? Do they also teach you the business aspects as well, or do they just focus on the voice and the theatrical?
I often think that if I had to do it all over again and I still, wanted to be a professional singer, I would have studied business at school, because these days it's so much different than it used to be. You need to have, those professional headshots, that great marketing material, that good website. You really need to have everything for your image ready to go, because It's not quite like it used to be where it was all about the voice. Now it's also about the image, because, hey, we're in 2020 now. Mm-hmm. But as far as people around you, just like any music career, having a publicist and having an agent can become a necessity if you have so much work that you don't want to be negotiating your own contracts, etc. I'm doing okay right now negotiating my own contracts. It's working out fine. You do have to realize, however hard your agent works, you would always work harder for those jobs because you're more hungry for the jobs and they have other people they represent. But that being said, once you get to the top end of your career, that's kind of a necessity to get those doors to open up for you, is to have an agent. But remember, having an agent doesn't guarantee that you get the job. Having an agent might give you more opportunities, but your real work as an artist is to make sure that you get the right training from the right instructor to make sure that you can get the most out of your body sound production-wise and have the best guidance. Because a lot of young singers, they will be guided by the wrong teacher, and they have a lot of bad habits to undo, and this happened to me as well early on in my career. I was a good natural singer, but I didn't have the best guidance with technique. So then you can damage or something can happen where you have to undo all that old technique. So it's really important to work on having a good teacher. And you'll know if you listen to yourself and listen to your body, make sure as you sing that there's free production of sound and not tension, and your specific questions are getting answered, and especially about breathing. You have to trust your intuition to see if the teacher you're working with really knows what they're doing, or if, sometimes teachers can sing great, but they don't actually quite know how to teach.
Right. Let me switch gears a little bit. Let's go back and tell me, when did you first think that you would want to be an opera singer?
Well, I actually grew up singing musical theater. I started very young at my elementary school in New Jersey, we had an excellent music program. I played violin kindergarten through sixth grade. It was a requirement. We had music theory classes in elementary school, and we had choir. So they started singling me out as someone who had a good voice. I had good pitch, and, I loved to sing. So they kind of started singling me out as early as elementary school. And then I did musical theater from the time I was about 13. And I really think this has helped me with my career extremely well because I got very good at being an entertainer. So that kind of led me into also starting my own bands and being a front woman in my own bands. So all that kind of gives me this freedom of communication with my audience, which I think has helped me be so successful in my career. But then the actual opera singing, it didn't happen until I was 18, and I moved to San Diego for university. And the teacher I had at the time, who was quite a good teacher, I had her for a couple of years, and she was the one who started teaching me a little bit of the basic classical technique. And so when I moved to San Diego, I thought, I'm going to audition for the opera chorus. And everyone thought that was a bit crazy because I didn't even know any arias, which are the opera songs. But I learned a couple. I went and auditioned, and I was very, very lucky because they were doing an opera that had a massive chorus. They pretty much needed everyone in San Diego who had a decent voice to be hired. And so I got hired at 18. I was one of the youngest chorus members at the time. And this was very lucky because once I was in the company, it's a lot easier to get hired again year after year, and I sang with them for 12 years at San Diego Opera.
When did you know that this is what I'm going to do for my career?
I think that, being up on that stage at San Diego Opera, and it was a top house, which meant it was one of the top 6 or 7 opera companies in the country. So they would fly these professional singers from all over the world to come and be the leads, and I was in the chorus. So I got to share this intimate stage with some of the best singers in the world and look out at this massive audience of, 3,000 plus people. And I thought, oh boy, I'd like to be that soloist, ever the competitive person in my life. What do I have to do to work my way up, to get to that position? So I think it was more for me a game of inspiration and, loving to be the center of the stage, more than kind of a love for opera music. But then when I started training with my latest teacher the last decade, who I was really lucky to find, he kind of instilled in me a lot more love of the actual art form. And as a singer, being able to push yourself to do all these extremely difficult things with your voice, and watching how your physicality and your mentality can exactly affect the type of sound that you can create, and to see how it thrills people. And that's another exciting part about being an opera singer is if you do it right, you can really thrill people, and to the point where they either keep coming back to watch you more, or some of my followers say I bring them to tears all the time, which in my business that's a good thing.
Right. So did you pull from your theatric days back in school to pull out the actor side in you, or have you taken acting training recently?
Not so recently. It was really from my younger days in musical theater. I did a lot of acting classes and dance classes. I can move well. I can act well. I think that definitely helped. It's good to do that young and get comfortable being close with other people on stage. And, I've always sort of enjoyed being, playing different roles and playing make-believe. And one of my best advices for people that like to be into acting is, just tap into your inner child. And if you have opportunity to play with any of your friends' kids or nieces or nephews or kids that you're familiar with in your family circle, just sit down and play with them a little bit, because they're the best teachers when it comes to imagination and role playing.
Now, when you're an opera singer as a career, what bumps in the road have you run into, or what would you like us to know that maybe you don't think we really think about that you have to go through as an opera singer?
Well, it's not a very easy career. The reason is because, first of all, it's very, very difficult to learn how to do it properly. So you really need to find, like I said, you have to find a good teacher. It's extremely important. It can ruin you if you don't. So that's, one of the first, not just the most connected, but the one who can teach you how to use your body and breath the best way. The second is, you have very few positions, especially in America, and a lot of people wanting to fill those positions. So it's extremely competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to always keep in mind, which it was part of my, I said biggest challenge is when I get an idea of doing something, I'm determined to do just that for my career. And I had to learn later in life to develop some other skills to take some pressure off the fact that that might not be my only source of income. Mm-hmm. So developing other skills that could maybe complement that creative side of my brain. Like I do film production and I, do marketing, et cetera. And business, like I said, is a great thing to understand to do well because that can translate to a lot of careers. So, you have to put a lot of time and hours into something that is not necessarily going to be your main source of bread and butter. So you have to really enjoy what it does for your mind and your soul and, really enjoy the whole process of being an opera singer and not just think, I'm going to enter this so I can have a big career in the world of opera.
Victoria, a couple more questions. What advice would you give to those coming up wanting to be an opera singer one day?
Well, the first advice I can say is if you really want to be an opera singer and you're very serious about it, no matter what stage you're at, but the younger the better, you have to start working on your breathing. Well, when I went up to train with my coach about 10 years ago, I thought I was going to learn to be an opera singer, but I was actually going to learn to be a professional breather because the only thing you have to work with is your breath and how to manage your breath. So if you can get a jump start on that before anybody else and have a lot of air to play with, everything else will fall into place a lot more easily. So I'm talking about learning how to do lap swimming or ocean swimming, maybe picking up a wind instrument and starting to play that, taking up yoga. And if you're really serious, you do all of the above. Because anything you can do to get more air in your body is going to allow you to produce the type of athletic singing that is necessary for opera.
Last question is now that we've got all this information about you and your career, where can we find you and hear you singing online?
Well, I have, during this pandemic, actually did a series from my front porch where I was singing operatic music and musical theater songs for my neighbors. So I've started a YouTube channel, and that's youtube.com/Victoria Robertson. And I have a website too, victoriarobertson.com. And it was a true testimony to all the training that I've done to be able to stand up on my front porch and have people hear it 3-4 blocks away. Because remember, it's not about the loudness when you sing opera, it's about the frequencies. And that all comes from, good breathing and good technique. So I would encourage everyone young who wants to start thinking about being an opera singer. There's 2 things you can work on right now. One is breathing, finding breathing exercises and the sports and instruments I mentioned. And also start looking at your languages, working on languages, Italian, French, Spanish, German. Just get the basics down. And then you're going to set yourself apart from the rest of the crowd.
Victoria Robertson, thank you so much for sharing your expertise on being an opera singer. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. I don't know if I can tag on one little extra thrill about how exciting it is, but, when you get up on that stage and you're all by yourself and you maybe have a, 40-piece orchestra down in the pit and you take a huge breath and your body can make this sound that can cut through all these tens of rows, hundreds of rows of people to the very back wall, you kind of feel a bit like a superhero that you can create all this big sound just by using your body. And there's nothing more thrilling than that kind of control and having people come up to you and say, I can't even believe that that's possible. So it's definitely an extremely rewarding career and even a very rewarding second career. If you put in the time and the work, you will be rewarded, and people will have a lot of respect for what you've accomplished.
Thank you for listening. I hope you liked this episode. If you have a particular job you'd like me to look into, send me an email at workuniversityforyou@gmail.com. That's workuniversity, the number 4, the letter U, @gmail.com. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.